About 14 months ago, I tore my supraspinatus tendon. That's a fancy word for saying I tore my rotator cuff. I was playing badminton, I tried something called a smash, and I absolutely failed at it. In that moment, I had what is called a shoulder subluxation. Basically, my joint dislocated and then relocated again. Because of that, I tore my rotator cuff, meaning I couldn't do overhead pressing, I couldn't do pull-ups, I couldn't do any form of lifting that I used to do before. I was completely thrown back to ground zero. And I only started rehabilitation after 2 whole months, meaning it's been almost 12 months since I started my rehab journey. It's been hours and hours and hours of boring stuff. I'm talking external rotations, trap 3 raises, internal rotations, lying down on the floor and doing W's. It's been so long of me just doing that stuff. But alhamdulillah, it has paid off because I'm very close now to basically getting back to full form. And for someone who absolutely loves lifting, like I was known as the fitness guy in my whole friend group, it means a lot to me. And it was heavily tied to my identity. So this whole year of rehab has taught me so much, and I want to share some of the lessons I've learned with you. It's all timestamp, by the way. Lesson 1 is that we suffer more in our head than we do in real life. It goes something along the lines of man suffers more in his head than reality. And this is so true because I realized that firsthand during this whole rehab journey. Basically after around the 4 to 5 month mark, all of my shoulder pain was gone. Right, so any shoulder pain I would have when I would put my arm up overhead, or when I would try overhead pressing, or when I would try dumbbell pressing, all of that pain was basically gone. And now my nervous system was basically getting used to firing these muscles again and being okay with me doing a bit more intensity for those muscles. Because I was getting used to that, I would have a bunch of achiness in my shoulder. My shoulder would be quite achy. You know, some days I wake up and it will be perfectly fine, but some days it will be just absolute hell. And that was a way of my nervous system basically protecting myself. But in my mind, I was like, oh no, what's going on? My shoulder, no. I was like, oh my God, I've done so much rehab, why is this happening? But truth is, it was all in my head. I've done this experiment recently. Basically, I still have an achy shoulder at times, right? But I've noticed that when I think more about it, when I think more about the slight feelings and sensations that I get in my shoulder, it worsens. I get more achy. My shoulder feels more achy. It feels terrible, but when I'm engulfed in a task, when I'm fully focused on something, then I forget about my shoulder. It's like my shoulder pain just goes away. My shoulder achiness just goes away. My shoulder isn't achy anymore. It's completely fine. And this wasn't just once. It was multiple times. And this has shown me that, honestly, our situations are much worse in our head than they are in real life. Your job isn't as bad as you think. Your work isn't as bad as you think. Your boss isn't as bad as you think. Your life situation isn't as bad as you think. In fact, you have way more to be grateful for. Allah has given you so much more. If you have a device to watch this video on, you have so much to be grateful for. And by the way, this is first applying to me because obviously I still lack in that department. I just came back today from a full day at college. A full day. I left home at around 7:45 a.m. I came back home at around 7:45 p.m. For 12 hours, I was gone. And I had to stay later than expected because I have an event coming up. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? What the hell, bro, why? But now that I think about it, I'm like, it's the story I tell myself. If I say that this situation is terrible, it's bad, it's, oh my God, why am I here? Then I'm gonna look for minor things to complain about. And then those are gonna make the situation even worse. So it all starts with your mind. How do you actually perceive the situation that you're in? It's not as bad as you think. It's not as bad as you think. When you objectively, with a logical mind, start looking at it, you're like, yeah, maybe it's not that bad. Sure, I don't like my job, but it's not as bad as I think. Sure, I definitely want to escape. I'm not being complacent. It's not as bad as I make it out to be. Right? And when you start looking at life with this frame, when you start looking at events that happen to you, bad events that happen to you with this frame of mind, it just makes it so much easier to actually go through them because you're like, first off, Allah had a wisdom in it. Second of all, it's not as bad as I think. Second thing is, nothing happens, then everything happens. This one shocked me so much because you'd expect with something like a shoulder tear, it's gonna slowly and progressively get better. But in my experience, it doesn't get better bit by bit by bit. It almost gets better exponentially. Like I'm talking for 3, 4, 5 weeks straight, I'm gonna be like, oh, this is not improving, this is not improving, this is not improving. And then randomly in the 6th week, it's like my pain starts to go away, my achiness starts to go away. I start feeling better and more confident in all my lifts. I'm like, what? How is this happening? Because I expected it to be linear, right? I was like, it's gonna go this, but it's like this, right? It's exponential. So I had to put in a lot of work. I'm talking 2-hour workouts, 1.5-hour workouts, 3, 4, 5 days a week. And these are boring workouts. They're not your push-pull legs or upper lower or bro split. No, they're not that. I'm not freaking pumping chest. I'm not freaking pumping shoulders. I'm out here doing external rotations, lying on the floor, doing W raises. It's not fun. But I had to go through that. And when I did that for the necessary amount of time, that's when it started to get better all of a sudden. Right? SubhanAllah, I don't know how it works, but that's what I felt. And this actually applies to most things in life. Most things in life, whatever thing you want to become successful in, it's exponential. If you want to build a business, it's going to be exponential. If you want to get better at a skill, it's exponential. Because everything requires a certain amount of work that needs to be done before you can start seeing the result. Lesson number 3, get a mentor. Oh my goodness, this has saved my whole rehab journey. I'm the type of person who's going to research every single bit of what I'm going through in order for me to figure out what to do. But with this, I just did not have a plan of action. I was like, what is going on? I did not understand anything. Right? I got an MRI, it said you have a supraspinatus tear, subscapularis tendinosis, fancy words. Basically, I tore my rotator cuff, right? I was trying to figure it out, but I was like, I just can't. And then I came across someone called Radbar Meister on YouTube. I tried out his slap tear routine for a whole week, and I was like, my shoulder's actually getting better. It's actually insane. And so I was like, okay, I don't know the path forward. I could try and figure it out, but it's gonna take me ages to figure it out, and I wanna get back to lifting as soon as possible. So I was like, okay, he's offering coaching, I'm gonna buy it. I paid him to be my coach. I've invested over $500 for him to be my coach for these 12 months. Because of me investing in his coaching program, because of me hiring him as my coach, I got to skip so many of the mistakes I would have made otherwise. I got to make much faster progress, and if I had any questions, any problems, any issues, I could always message him and he'd reply back in a day. This happened once where I was building up to a 5x5 on the overhead press, and I attempted 37 kilograms for a 5x5. What ended up happening was that I caused a flare-up in my shoulder, right? All of a sudden, hanging started to hurt, overhead pressing started to hurt. My shoulder was in pain, basically. If I was on my own, I would be pooping my pants right now. I'd be like, what is going on? But because I had a coach, I messaged him. I was like, yo, this happened. What do I do now? And then he told me, oh, it's normal, it's simple. You know, it's a flare-up. It happens a lot in people's rehab journeys. All you need to do is just dial back the volume, dial back the progressions, dial back the intensity, and slowly build back up again. I was like, oh yeah, sure. Took me about 2 months to build back up, but it would have taken me a lot longer if I was by myself. I can't wait to invest $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 into someone to teach me something that I want to learn. To me, that's such a... Why wouldn't you do that? You could literally pay someone with cash that you can make back, inshallah, for you to save time. I can spend 2 months learning a specific skill, but if I can pay someone to teach me that skill and cut through every single problem I would have faced if I were to do that on my own and save like 2 months, that's worth the money, bro. That is worth the money. At the end of the day, we don't know how long we're gonna live, and we don't have a lot of time on this earth. Why wouldn't you? The point is, there are so many people, so many coaches, so many mentors that you can invest in, save time, boost the process, and get results faster. They're literally just there waiting for you to invest in them. Number 4, lifting is a blessing. Wallahi, lifting is truly a blessing. Truly a blessing. Before I got injured, one of my favorite parts of the day was getting the pump, was lifting, was trying to get my numbers up. That was one of my favorite parts of the day. And to not be able to do that, to not be able to train intensely, to not be able to train hard, that showed me that lifting is such a blessing and we cannot take it for granted. Think about this for a second. Allah gave you the ability to carve your body, to sculpt your body, to sculpt your muscles, however you want it. That's crazy. No other species has that ability, bro. No other creature has that ability. Animals don't, only humans have that ability, right? A dog can change his physique, but a person can, a human can't. It's beautiful, but it goes even beyond that, because it's not just about getting the physique. It's also about what it does for you mentally. Last and final lesson, find joy in the process. These 12 months were some of the most boring months of my life lifting wise. I'm talking boring. Like, literally boring. Lifting is fun, lifting is exciting, bro. Shooting for more PRs, doing incline bench press, overhead press, pull-ups, that's so exciting. But rehab isn't. It really isn't. May Allah protect all of us, and may Allah protect you. I wouldn't ever want you to go through what I just went through. But what helped me truly get through these 12 months of rehab was attaching to the process, was giving myself to the process, submitting to the process. That is what helped me the most when it comes to actually getting through these 12 months of rehab. Instead of me constantly thinking to myself, oh, when is the shoulder gonna heal? Which I was doing before, by the way. I was like, oh, that's probably gonna take me 3 months, 6 months maybe. You know, in my mind, I was like, okay, it might take me a year. I was like, worst case scenario, and that's exactly what happened. But I wanted it to be fixed in 3 months, in 6 months maximum. And so as the timeline approached, as 3 months approached, as 6 months approached, I was like, why isn't it getting better? Why isn't it getting better? But then I realized, I was like, me constantly saying like, why isn't it getting better? Isn't gonna make it better. So instead of focusing on the output, which is a fixed shoulder, focus on the input, which would be, can I get one more rep on external rotations? Can I increase the weight on trap 3 raises? Can I lift slightly heavier for all of my lifts? Me changing my mindset like this made one of the biggest differences ever. Because I now started to focus on input results, not output results. I went from being like, bro, I can't even do one pull-up, to me being like, yo, I just hung from a bar for 60 seconds without pain. You see what I mean? Like, my input results slowly started to get better. And that's exactly what I focused on. And when I did that, I actually had more fun, time flew by even faster, and I got through those 12 months. When I started to think about, okay, I'm actually approaching 35 kilograms on the overhead press. Okay, I'm actually touching 37 kilograms on the overhead press. Oh my God, I trained to RPE 9 today, when I was training at RPE 6 3 months ago. You see what I mean? Like, it's these small things that if you focus on and if you put your eyes on, then every single workout, there is going to be something that you actually improve in. And when you see that improvement, you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to keep going. As opposed to you focusing on the results and being like, it's been 2 weeks, my shoulder still has been fixed, and then you quit, right? Like, leave the outcome to Allah. As difficult as it may be to sometimes practice this, leave the outcome to Allah. Just leave it to Allah. Right? He is the one who's going to give you the results for your efforts. But for you, what matters are the inputs, is the effort. That is what matters. Right? وَأَنَّ سَعْيَهُ سَوْفَ يُرَى. And his effort will be seen. That is what matters. And so, again, this can apply to any facet of life. For example, with content, right? With me trying to make content. I know for a fact this video is probably going to get less than 100 views. Sure, let it be. But that's because I suck right now. And I need to get better and better and better. It's probably going to take like hundreds and hundreds, if not at least 1,000 videos for me to actually get decent at this game. So if I constantly look at the things I'm doing from an outputs perspective, I'm like, my videos still suck. Why do they still stuck? Well, dummy, it's because you haven't done the inputs necessary. But if I look at it from an input perspective, I'm like, bro, I spoke a bit better in this video. The camera angles were better. The B-roll was better. The setup was better. I was more concise. I was more on point. When I do that, when I see those input results, that's when I'm going to be even more motivated to keep going. And that's when I'm actually going to make the most progress and have the most fun. So that was the video for today. I hope that you actually found this valuable. I hope that you took something from it. And please keep your shoulders safe. Right? Do your external rotations, do your trap 3 raises, do your prehab stuff. Because trust me, you don't want to end up in this situation. Address your weaknesses before you have to cure them. Prevent them before you have to cure them. That being said, I hope this was valuable. I will catch you in the next one. Assalamu alaikum.